The story opens with a flashback set 15 years in the past, revealing that the world underwent a dramatic and extraordinary change, not a mere natural disaster, but something far more terrifying. Without warning, monsters began to appear across the globe, pushing humanity to the brink of extinction. The source of this catastrophe was a mysterious structure known simply as the Tower. This enigmatic entity bestowed immense strength and authority upon these creatures. People came to call it either the Devil's Tower or God's Tower, names born from the belief that the deities and demonic forces controlling it would grant anything a person desired, be it power, wealth, or honor, if they succeeded in climbing it. The tower contained 999 perilous floors. Governments worldwide attempted to forbid challengers from entering, but any who interfered were swiftly punished. Over the past 5 years, billions of eyes have turned toward the tower, captivated by its power and danger. In the present, a man known as Death Star stands on the 600th floor, laughing as he fights his way forward. Suddenly, a radiant beam sweeps across the battlefield, eradicating every monster before him. Shocked and furious, his voice echoes through the chamber as he roars the name, 9 Star, demanding if they dare to hinder him. One of their members calmly remarks to his allies that Death Star's body is unstable. Among millions of challengers, 9 individuals wield the tower's divine energy with unrivaled mastery. These are the 9 Star. Their abilities surpass all others. Death Star, however, is no wielder of a legendary weapon nor a superhuman in the traditional sense. Instead, he is the world's most powerful necromancer, a bringer of death who once rose above even the 9 Star to claim the title of the strongest. His true name is Cha Jinhyuk. Enraged, Jinhyuk accuses the 9 Star of obstructing his noble cause. He utters a single word, "Awake," and the ground trembles as thousands of undead rise at his command. He declares that he has grown weary of peace and of humanity itself, promising with a dark laugh that he will make the 9 Star his own summoned forces and reign supreme. A white-haired member of 9 Star, clutching an ancient book, shouts that he knew Death Star had betrayed humanity and sided with the forces of evil. Rallying his comrades, he orders them to strike down the traitor. Consumed by power, Jinhyuk launches his strikes. Yet even his immense abilities cannot defeat the entire 9 Star alone. A fierce and relentless battle follows. One by one, his undead are destroyed under the might of his opponents. At last, all 9 members combine their power, delivering a final, decisive blow. Jinhyuk falls, condemned in the eyes of the world as a betrayer of humankind. But the truth is far more complex. Jinhyuk never betrayed humanity. Instead, he was betrayed by the 9 Star themselves, or more precisely, by 8 of their number. This secret is hidden from the world, buried under layers of deception. 10 years later, Jinhyuk's eyes snap open as he awakens in an unfamiliar room, shouting his vow to return and exact vengeance. He looks around, disoriented, before a surge of exhilaration hits him. His secret technique, soul transmission, had worked. At the instant of death, his soul had been transferred into a suitable new body. Testing his new form, he confirms that he remains in South Korea. Memories of his final moments flood back. He recalls standing on the 600th floor, capable of clearing it alone, when the 9 Star approached him with an offer of help before betraying him. He remembers confronting Paladin Kane Pellin and Saintess Carmen Pellin, both members of 9 Star, demanding to know why they turned against him. Carmen had mocked him, saying that despite his reputation as the one-man army, he was nothing before the united strength of the 9 Star. Jinhyuk had replied that he only sought to assist them. With a cold smile, Kane told him not to take it personally, claiming that removing him was merely a matter of clearing away obstacles. Jinhyuk had then asked if Choi Gyung-hoon, the star warrior of the 9 Star, was involved in their scheme. They replied that Gyung-hoon had chosen not to join them on the 600th floor. The implication was clear. They feared Gyung-hoon might have sided with Jinhyuk had he known the truth. Cha Jinhyuk, accepting his defeat, his vision blurs. Yet with his remaining willpower he casts one final spell upon himself. In his mind, he makes a solemn vow. He will return stronger, and he will have his revenge. That is the last memory before everything goes dark. As thoughts of vengeance against the 9 Star consume him, he feels a faint vibration in his hand. A phone. The sensation surprises him. He has not held one in years. When he checks the screen, his eyes widen. The date reads 2023. 10 years have passed since his death, though to him it feels like only moments. Doubt creeps in as he questions whether his skill truly worked. Suddenly reminded of the magic that once surged through his veins, he attempts a test. Spotting a fly hovering nearby, he utters the command, "Awake," intending to reanimate it as undead. Nothing happens. He repeats the word, louder each time, but the insect doesn't move. The realization hits him. This new body possesses not even a trace of mana. The truth is bitter. He must challenge the tower without a single skill. Concern gnaws at him. What if the 9-star have already conquered the tower in the years he was gone? Quickly unlocking his phone, he searches for answers. An article catches his eye. Choi Kyung-hoon has reached the 800th floor. In a decade, the 9-star have only climbed 200 floors. A slow, almost leisurely pace. For Jin-hyuk, this is not discouraging, it is an opportunity. If they are advancing so slowly, he has time to close the gap, to rise again, and to take everything from them. Pulling on his hoodie, he tells himself that training outside the tower is meaningless. His current body may be weak, but within him lies the knowledge and experience of Death Star, Cha Jin-hyuk. With that wisdom, he can grow stronger faster than anyone else. His resolve hardens. This is the path to his revenge. He steps out, heading toward the tower. At the Seoul Tower entrance, countless challengers gather, each with their own ambitions. A black-haired man boasts that he will become rich once he clears the tower. A man in a cap scoffs, telling him he will likely fall on the first floor. Jin-hyuk's eyes are fixed on the colossal structure ahead. Images flash through his mind. A coffin in a shadow-filled chamber creaking open, a skeletal face emerging, a golden-haired man counting coins in greedy delight. In the midst of this, Jin-hyuk silently swears that his name will once again be known to all. At exactly 1 p.m., a notification rings out. The tower has opened. The mass of challengers surges forward, pouring inside. And so begins the next chapter of Cha Jin-hyuk's revenge. After entering the tower with the other challengers, the gate seals shut behind them. In the blink of an eye, Cha Jin-hyuk is transported to the starting zone of a tutorial area. A notification appears, welcoming him to the tower. He exhales slowly, scanning the message, and remarks that this tutorial is far too difficult for beginners. From his memory, it would take days of running just to navigate the traps and reach the finish. Of all the 10 tutorial floors, he recalls, this one was considered the most unreasonable by those who faced it. Another notification outlines the objective. Cross to the other side while avoiding the traps. Any injuries will be healed upon reaching either the finish or the starting point. Speaking the command status window, he calls up his stats. The display lists his name, a mana type, physical talent, all attributes at level 1, and 2 traits, one labeled gluttony and the other still unknown. His initial disappointment fades when he notices the second trait and the rare talent type. These, he realizes, were not the same as before his death. He concludes that traits and talents must vary between souls. He decides to make the most of this tutorial. Launching into a sprint, he leaps into the air, only for a message to warn that he has triggered a magic arrow trap. Twisting midair, he dodges the first projectile easily, grinning at the proof that his reflexes remain sharp. As he runs, a hail of arrows rains down from above. Quite the welcome, he mutters, sidestepping and weaving through the barrage. But when 2 arrows strike him unexpectedly, he presses forward, refusing to yield. The next volley is even more relentless. His body, riddled with arrows, finally collapses under the strain. A moment later, he finds himself back at the starting point, fully healed. Assessing his failure, he realizes reckless running will only lead to repeated defeat. This time, he calls upon gluttony, one of the traits that once made him Earth's strongest climber. The ability can absorb lifeless matter to strengthen him, so he draws in the blood he had spilled moments earlier. The result is immediate. His experience increases, his tolerance stat rises, and he gains the resilience to withstand basic abnormal conditions without equipment. Recognizing the potential, Jin-hyuk begins deliberately taking arrow hits to push his tolerance to the limit. A month later, with arrows still protruding from his body, he finally reaches the portal at the zone's end. The system congratulates him and restores his health. As he catches his breath, a flurry of messages appear. Several gods and demons have taken an interest in him. Unimpressed, he openly insults them. Their offended reactions fill his notification feed, yet he ignores their outrage. He reasons that their anonymity likely means they wish to recruit him as a disciple. One message stands out. The demon known as Peak of All Evil is smiling at him. Without hesitation, Jinhyuk calls out the being's true name, Baal. In his past life, Baal had shadowed him constantly, attempting to make him his disciple, and had been the one to grant him the soul transmission skill. Jinhyuk acknowledges this connection, but points out that Baal's attention has now drawn many others to him. Frustrated, he scolds Baal for the unwanted attention. The demon apologizes, but Jinhyuk warns all watching deities to remain silent and simply observe if they wish to see whom he chooses as a master. Baal sulks, yet Jinhyuk firmly rejects the idea of becoming his disciple. Turning to his rewards, Jinhyuk examines the results of his month-long endurance training. Using gluttony, he has gained tolerance to various abnormal conditions and increased all stats by more than 10 points. A message declares that he can now endure. He notes with satisfaction that his mana stat has grown slightly, something only possible because of his mana type, physical talent. Another notification reveals that his once unknown trait has been identified, All-Rounder. The description explains that this trait allows the user to become proficient in any skill or discipline, with performance bonuses during both training and combat, scaling with proficiency. The possibilities excite him. He could one day claim the title of All-Master, the supreme expert in every field, a goal he had failed to achieve in his previous life despite meticulous preparation. As he imagines this new path, Baal's sudden, intense interest in his status screen catches him off guard. Jinhyuk narrows his eyes, wondering just how far the demon will go to involve himself in his rise once again. After Baal's sudden interest in Jinhyuk's status window, Jinhyuk warns him to stop interfering and leave. He tells the other gods and demons that they are welcome to observe him if they wish, then proceeds to the next floor. Upon arrival, a notification welcomes him to the room of choice and training. Surrounded by countless weapons, the system explains that he may select any class and weapon he desires. Once he makes his choice, the floor beneath will collapse, and he will be teleported to the first floor of the tower. Pausing to think, Jinhyuk recalls that in his past life, after discovering he was a mana type, he had chosen the mage class without hesitation. This time, however, he picks up a bow and commands the system to generate a practice target to test his all-rounder trait. 3 targets appear, and he swiftly releases 3 arrows, each striking the exact center. Unsatisfied, he orders more targets, this time instructing that they should be able to attack. The system warns that this could be dangerous since he has not yet chosen a class, but he ignores the caution. The new dummies charge at him, and Jinhyuk leaps into the air, shooting arrows mid-flight with perfect accuracy. He defeats some with his bow, others with a sword, and still feels unchallenged. He requests stronger opponents. The system increases the difficulty, and 3 formidable dummies appear, one towering as large as a house. Jinhyuk hurls a spear, striking the giant directly in its weak point, then spins around and throws 2 daggers behind him, instantly neutralizing the other 2. Without warning, a group of drone-like dummies materializes, attacking from long range. The system notes these are the most dangerous targets on the floor. Jinhyuk decides to take things more seriously, drawing a staff, his specialty. With a single spell, he eliminates them all. The all-rounder trait proves astonishing, as if he had mastered each weapon over years of practice. A notification rewards him with the All-Master achievement, granting an increase to his attack stat, 5,000 accomplishment points, and unlocking the All-Master class. Though tempted, Jinhyuk decides not to make it his primary class. He attempts to choose it as a subclass, but the system refuses, stating subclasses only unlock after clearing floor 100. Since he cannot leave without selecting a class, he asks if accomplishment points can be used to unlock a subclass slot. The system pauses, then questions how a beginner could know such information. Jinhyuk dismisses the inquiry, repeating his request. The answer comes, he does not have enough points. Smiling slyly, Jinhyuk announces that he will make use of Baal. Addressing the system, he explains that the peak of all evil, Baal, has revealed his identity and spoken to him, asking if this qualifies as an accomplishment. The system confirms it and rewards him with 200 points. Ball, seeking approval, asks if he did well, but Jin-hyuk, clearly irritated, tells him to stop acting overly familiar. Using his accumulated points, Jin-hyuk successfully selects All Master as his subclass. The system congratulates him and informs him that he will now be transported to the first floor after the destruction of the room of choice and training. With a grin, Jin-hyuk demolishes the room and is instantly sent to the tower's first floor. He arrives in the Karol forest, where 3 adventurers are in trouble, one injured, another complaining about the difficulty, and all struggling against a pack of kobolds. As a monster lunges at a black-haired man, a crack splits the air above. Jin-hyuk drops through, landing a powerful kick on the creature, taking it down instantly. Looking at the rest of the kobolds, he smirks, wondering what rewards await him after he defeat them all. After witnessing Jin-hyuk defeat the kobold with effortless precision, the black-haired man is clearly impressed, not only by Jin-hyuk's strength, but also by the fact that he is a mage. Another person suggests to the black-haired man that they should consider teaming up with him. However, Jin-hyuk overhears the conversation and, in a fierce tone, warns them to stay away from the kobolds and to leave immediately if they value their lives. Frightened, they quickly retreat, leaving Jin-hyuk alone with his targets. Without hesitation, Jin-hyuk turns his attention to the remaining kobolds. As one charges toward him, he defeats it instantly, then fires a magic arrow at another, bringing it down in the same moment. Checking his current quest, he notes that the first floor objective requires the defeat of 10 kobolds. He considers this trivial, more like a walk in the park, confident that he could easily handle 100. While completing the quest, he sets his sights on another goal, obtaining the Slayer achievement. This is earned by eliminating a single type of monster 1,000 times. Determined, Jin-hyuk begins hunting with that in mind. Using his gluttony trait on the fallen kobolds, he gains their memories, strength, and even their language. As his power grows, he checks his stats and is surprised. They now match those of a climber who has reached the 10th floor. He wonders if this is because, as an all-master, he benefits from the bonuses of every class. Soon, he begins to see a kobold's memory, a frantic kobold rushing into a cave, gathering captives, under the orders of a fearsome kobold lord. The sight excites Jin-hyuk, knowing that a lord monster can summon waves of monsters. This presents the perfect opportunity to achieve the Slayer title while farming for additional rewards. Realizing he will need an army to handle such a wave, Jin-hyuk uses his necromantic power. Speaking the command, "Awake," a beam of purple light envelopes the fallen kobolds, transforming them into undead skeleton soldiers. A system notification appears, confirming that he has successfully changed his class to Necromancer. Thanks to his all-master subclass and memories from his past life, changing classes is straightforward for him. Still, he is not fully satisfied. There is a hidden class on the first floor that he intends to obtain. When one of his skeleton soldiers turns its gaze toward a group of kobolds, Jin-hyuk orders them to eliminate the creatures. After dispatching 10 more kobolds and converting them into skeletal soldiers, he begins searching for a cabin he remembers. Upon finding it, he instructs his undead troops to wait outside. Inside, he uncovers a hidden path beneath the wooden floor. Descending the stairs, he drops kobold mana stones at each step and finally empties an entire bag when he reaches an ancient coffin used for class change. Within rests the remains of the very first spirit master, Vulcan. Opening the coffin, he watches as Vulcan's skeleton rises into the air, its voice echoing as it asks Jin-hyuk if he is Vulcan's descendant. Unfazed by the sight, Jin-hyuk listens as Vulcan admits that he tried to make his entrance impressive, but now feels it has turned awkward. Jin-hyuk responds that he sought out Vulcan after reading his journal, and as a necromancer, he is long past being startled by a skeleton's appearance. In this life, however, he has not read Vulcan's journal. He recalls that in his past life, after losing his value by choosing the mage class, he discovered the hidden item known as the Journal of Spirit Master Vulcan and came to the first floor. Though he became a spirit master back then, he failed to capture Vulcan as one of his summons. Vulcan remarks that Jin-hyuk is better than a certain someone from 10 years ago. Realizing Vulcan is referring to his past self, Jin-hyuk feels mildly offended and briefly considers destroying him. but quickly discards the thought and focuses on his goal, changing his class. He requests that Vulcan change his class to Spirit Master. Vulcan explains that this requires reaching the 10th floor, as Spirit Master is a higher-ranked class than Necromancer and can only be unlocked after a second class change there. As Vulcan begins detailing the process, Jin-hyuk interrupts to reveal that he is already a Necromancer, then displays his status window. Astonished that Jin-hyuk possesses 2 classes without having reached the 10th floor, Vulcan praises his talent and even insults his past self as arrogant. Jin-hyuk presses again, asking if the class change will happen or not. Floating in the air, Vulcan begins the process. Before the tower appeared on Earth, Vulcan was the strongest climber it had ever seen and the greatest necromancer. Always seeking to surpass his limits, he abandoned the path of creating death knights or liches, instead summoning the souls of the dead. He created summons more powerful than their predecessors, eventually giving rise to a new class, Spirit Master. But his physical body reached its limit. To prevent his creation from vanishing, Vulcan used necromancy on himself, transforming into a half-NPC and entrusting the future of the class to his descendant. As the process concludes, a purple glow radiates from Jin-hyuk's chest. Vulcan declares that the guy he spoke of was the 2nd Spirit Master, and now Jin-hyuk is the 3rd. He instructs Jin-hyuk to use Soul Crucible to capture souls and summon them in battle. Thrilled, Jin-hyuk thanks him and immediately decides Vulcan's soul will be his first capture, having prepared for this moment in advance. Vulcan congratulates him and urges him to climb the tower, spreading Vulcan's name, but Jin-hyuk tells him to do it himself. Annoyed, Vulcan asks if he has forgotten the promise in the journal. Walking toward him, Jin-hyuk jokingly says that pushing one's responsibilities onto others is a bad habit, and he will fix it for free. Vulcan warns him to stay away, but Jin-hyuk activates Soul Collect. Vulcan's soul begins to rise from his skeleton, but he narrowly escapes by dismantling his own body. He mocks Jin-hyuk and shouts that the previous descendant taught him well, and that they will meet again in the afterlife. Before he can flee, his path is blocked by a shimmering magical wall. Startled, Vulcan asks if this is magic. Jin-hyuk smiles, asking if he is comfortable inside the personal prison created with a low-tier skill called Magic Wall. Vulcan snaps that he can break such weak magic easily and warns Jin-hyuk that pulling such tricks will not keep him safe. Jin-hyuk replies that he has scattered Kobold Mana Stones throughout the area and can trigger them at will, ensuring that even if Vulcan breaks free, he will still be caught. Realization strikes Vulcan. How could a first-floor climber know such advanced tactics? Jin-hyuk reveals his identity. He is the same Cha Jin-hyuk who failed to capture Vulcan's soul 10 years ago. Vulcan finally understands that the 3rd descendant is the very man who tried to bind him in the past. Jin-hyuk asks if Vulcan still considers himself the 2nd Spirit Master, or if it is time to recognize him as the 3rd. Without waiting for a reply, he activates Soul Collect once more, successfully drawing Vulcan's soul. With a grin, Jin-hyuk assures Vulcan that there is no need for resentment. Everything Vulcan wished for will now be fulfilled under his command. After obtaining the Spirit Master class and returning from the cabin, Cha Jin-hyuk notices he is drawing the attention of the peak of all evil and the death-observing demon. He smiles in relief, knowing that demons and gods cannot enter the room used for class changes. Calmly, he tells them that he will speak to them soon and that they simply need to wait. Turning his gaze to his skeleton soldiers, Jin-hyuk decides they are no longer necessary. He disperses them and then reawakens them as spirit soldiers, noting with some dissatisfaction that they still cannot speak. At that moment, someone calls his name. Looking toward the voice, he sees a middle-aged man who demands to know how Jin-hyuk dares to use Vulcan as a spirit soldier. Jin-hyuk remarks that this is his first time seeing Vulcan in human form, adding with a teasing tone that Vulcan must have been handsome in his younger days. Enraged, Vulcan warns him not to underestimate the 1st Spirit Master. As he gathers his power, a sudden fit of coughing interrupts him, caused by the overwhelming pressure Jin-hyuk exerts. Jin-hyuk calmly tells Vulcan that the only reason he still exists is because Jin-hyuk is supplying him with mana, and that without it, Vulcan would simply fade away. Vulcan asks if Jin-hyuk truly believes he will obey like a tamed servant. Jin-hyuk replies that Vulcan has no choice, declaring that he will turn him into a soul orb and absorb him, just as Vulcan once did to those who defied him. Jin-hyuk also reminds him of his own gluttony trait. Recognizing the danger, Vulcan recalls the terrifying nature of that ability. He reluctantly agrees to obey. He then asks what their next move will be. Jin-hyuk points toward a castle in the distance and states that they will be taking down a kobold lord. Approaching the castle entrance, 2 kobold guards attempt to intimidate him. Unmoved, Jin-hyuk releases his kobold spirit soldiers, who swiftly deal with them. The noise draws more guards, but they are no match for his 30 kobold spirit soldiers. Determined to take action rather than remain idle in this life, Jin-hyuk orders his troops to bring out the kobold lord while he readies a spear. The battle outside grows intense, drawing the attention of the kobold lord inside. He hastily orders his subordinate to bring the hostages. Outside, 1 spirit soldier defeats multiple kobolds single-handedly. A hidden trapdoor opens and several kobolds attempt an ambush, but they are intercepted by spirit soldiers and quickly eliminated by Jin-hyuk's sword. Sensing a dark and oppressive aura, Jin-hyuk pinpoints the kobold lord's exact location. A system notification appears, informing him that Ball is cheering for him with light batons. Annoyed, Jin-hyuk tells Ball to stop, and that he will win regardless. Inside the castle, the kobold lord shouts for more hostages to be brought forward. Suddenly, he hears someone yell. He turns to see that it is a female dakibi, grabbing her by the arm. Before he can act further, a sword flies through the air and strikes his hand, forcing him to release her. Startled, the kobold lord looks toward the source of the attack and demands to know if the intruder is Jin-hyuk. Jin-hyuk scans the surroundings. He states coldly that regardless of the preparations, the kobold lord's plan is destined to fail. Upon seeing Jin-hyuk, the kobold lord confirms that the intruder is indeed him. Jin-hyuk provokes him by calling him a trash leader, which enrages the kobold lord. In a booming voice, the lord declares that he is the king of all kobolds, Callum, and demands that Jin-hyuk show proper respect. Jin-hyuk mocks him further, saying that for a mere first-floor boss, Callum is far too arrogant, and challenges him to earn that respect. In the midst of this standoff, the confused Dakibi girl gathers her courage and tries to make a quick escape. Before she can get far, Callum calls upon the death-observing demon for power. A surge of dark energy flows into him, and he unleashes his spear skill, sending deadly spears flying toward her. She glances back in fear, bracing for impact, only for Jin-hyuk to dash forward and deflect the spears with a swift kick, stopping the attack and saving her. The Dakibi girl thanks him in gratitude, but Jin-hyuk, about to dismiss her, notices the small horns on her head and asks if she is indeed a Dakibi. Inwardly, he reflects on how the Dakibi are a powerful race from the 100th floor, and there should be no reason for one to descend so far. This leads him to suspect that something significant has happened on the 100th floor. He decides to protect her for now, intending to question her later. Callum roars in outrage, demanding to know how Jin-hyuk dares to interfere. Jin-hyuk warns the girl that he will not save her twice and advises her to hide if she wants to live. She quickly complies. Callum strikes at Jin-hyuk using his new skill. Explosions erupt around Jin-hyuk, but Jin-hyuk skillfully evades the blasts, closing the distance between himself and Callum. Once in range, he remarks, "Too slow," criticizing Callum's poor mana control before delivering a powerful punch to his jaw. The blow sends Callum flying, leaving him shocked at how a first-floor climber could possess such strength. Before Jin-hyuk can strike again, Callum desperately calls to the death demon for aid. Then suddenly a massive golem comes forth, which seizes Jin-hyuk's arm. Callum taunts him, claiming this construct represents the pinnacle of his necromantic power. Hearing those words, Jin-hyuk's expression hardens. The thought of a weak necromancer boasting in front of him, when he is the strongest in this field, fills him with disdain. In response, he summons his spirit soldiers, who take down the massive golem within seconds. Callum is stunned, even as a lord monster. Creating such a construct is beyond the abilities of a kobold. Turning to the death demon, Jin-hyuk calls him by his true name, Byun, and demands to know if the massive golem was his doing. Byun nods silently while Ball casts him a sharp glare. Jin-hyuk accuses Byun of summoning the golem merely to test his power as a spirit master during a fight with one of Byun's followers. Addressing Callum, Jin-hyuk explains that because of Byun's interference, his mana is now depleted, Callum angrily vows that Bune will take revenge on Jinhyuk, even if it costs him his life. Jinhyuk orders his spirit soldiers to seize Callum and tells him to make sure Bune hears his words, adding that he has much to say to the demon. Callum struggles, shouting for Bune's help and commanding the kobold spirit soldiers to release him, still proclaiming himself the king of kobolds. Raising his hand, Jinhyuk warns Bune that this is the end of his follower, telling him not to complain later and promising that he will pay for testing him. Bune only laughs, saying he enjoys it. Without another word, Jinhyuk clenches his fist, takes down Callum, king of kobolds. After killing the kobold lord Callum, he draws Callum's soul out, grips it firmly by the beard, and prevents it from escaping. He remarks on Callum's unfulfilled duties before using his soul orb production skill to mold the soul into a sphere, preparing it for absorption. After swallowing the soul, Jinhyuk feels a slight increase in strength but remains dissatisfied, as the boost to his stats is minimal. The Dakibi girl, Haryu, approaches and thanks him for saving her life. Jinhyuk replies that he simply happened to be there to deal with the kobold lord and tells her not to worry about it. Haryu insists she still owes him her gratitude. Testing her resolve, Jinhyuk asks what she would do if he were a bad man who intended to harm her. Wearing a fierce expression, she responds that she would handle it herself. As he expected this kind of answer, Jinhyuk then asks why she is on the lower floor instead of the 100th floor. Haryu hesitates before revealing that the Dakibi village on the 100th floor was attacked. The news shocks Jinhyuk. He reflects that the Dakibi are such a powerful race that they are rarely threatened, even by climbers. This leads him to suspect the involvement of one of the 4 great species, the giants, dragons, demons, or angels, who hold dominion over all within the tower. Anyone daring to attack the Dakibis so brazenly would likely be one of these species or be backed by them. He also considers the possibility that the 9-Star Guild is involved, a thought that stirs his anger. Noticing his expression, Haryu asks if he is all right. Jinhyuk brushes it off, saying it is nothing, and states that he is leaving. Haryu hesitantly asks to accompany him. Thinking it over, Jinhyuk concludes that having a Dakibi on his side might be useful. He warns her that he will be too busy to look after her, but she assures him she can manage. When he reminds her that she was nearly killed by the kobold lord, she insists she was only caught because she let her guard down. Satisfied, he agrees to let her join him. As he notices bloodstains on his clothing, he considers finding new attire. A glint catches his eye, and he discovers an equipment item. Later, while leaving the castle in a new look, Haryu grabs his arm just as a void appears in front of them. Vulcan arrives with the remaining spirit soldiers and reports that all kobolds have been eliminated. Seeing Vulcan, Haryu asks about his identity. Vulcan inquires about her name and whether she can see him. When she confirms that she can, she explains that some Dakibis have a natural affinity for perceiving souls. Intrigued, Jinhyuk realizes she is special and briefly considers using gluttony to absorb her ability, but decides instead to keep and train her. A system notification appears, announcing a monster wave quest. Defeating a lord monster triggers a wave, disabling all safe zones on the 1st floor. Both Vulcan and Haryu are alarmed and ask if he plans to accept it. Jinhyuk replies that there is no point in defeating the kobold lord otherwise. Many gods and demons warn him against it, but Bune makes a bet, promising a reward if Jinhyuk places first in contribution. Jinhyuk asks the system if this is Bune's way of calling it even, but the system clarifies that these are simply Bune's words. He decides to see the reward before making his choice. Vulcan asks if he truly intends to risk his life. Jinhyuk responds that he knows Vulcan would prefer his death, as it would free him, but makes it clear he has no intention of dying, and that Vulcan will remain his servant even afterward. Pressing the accept button, Jinhyuk triggers the quest. The system announces that the kobolds will attack village entrances and all 1st floor safe zones will be disabled. At Karol Village's safe zone, panic erupts among the challengers. Some curse the person who accepted the quest, while others worry for their lives. One suggests fleeing to the 2nd floor if their quests are complete. As lightning flashes, kobolds pour from a portal, their numbers overwhelming. From above, Jinhyuk descends alongside Haryu and Vulcan. Facing the gathering crowd, He declares for all to hear that every kobold is his to defeat and orders the others to stay out of his way. As he advances toward the horde, several challengers shout from a distance, asking about his identity, while others attempt to stop him, questioning whether he and his companions can even see the sheer number of kobolds ahead. Without hesitation, Jinhyuk summons his spirit soldiers, sending them charging into the kobolds. Witnessing this, some challengers immediately recognize the power and question how someone on the first floor could possess a necromancer's abilities. The spirit soldiers push forward, taking down the kobolds with precision. Haryu, eager to contribute, asks Jinhyuk if she can also aim for the Slayer achievement. He tells her to hurry, warning that if she is too slow, his spirit soldiers will eliminate all the kobolds, leaving none for her. With confidence, Haryu assures him she has a plan. She summons a sword from a pocket plane and, with swift precision, defeats a kobold that charges at her. Jinhyuk takes note, his thoughts briefly turning to the possibility that Haryu's skill and possession of such a weapon may be the reason she became a target for the invaders. Before he can dwell on it further, an arrogant voice calls out to him. A man named Kim Sung-tae demands to know who made Jinhyuk the leader here. He introduces himself as a member of the White Swallow Guild, a subsidiary of the Holy Land Guild, founded by the famous nine-star Pelin siblings. The mention of the Pelin siblings immediately stirs Jinhyuk's anger. Sung-tae boasts that his brother is also in the White Swallow Guild and claims that both he and his group will join the guild once they reach the 10th floor. He even praises Jinhyuk's skills and tries to persuade him to join. Jinhyuk interrupts without hesitation. A spirit soldier restrains Sung-tae as Jinhyuk takes his sword and calmly tells him he needs information. Alarmed, Sung-tae's companions demand to know why Jinhyuk is taking such measures. Jinhyuk responds that the rules about not harming, striking, or stealing from others apply only on Earth. In the tower, only strength holds value. Releasing Sung-tae, Jinhyuk warns him that he is alive only because of the information he carries and instructs him to keep his distance. Sung-tae's companions rush to his side, asking for their next move. Clearly shaken, he advises them to retreat. Back on the battlefield, Jinhyuk and Vulcan crash into the center of the kobold horde. Vulcan complains about their overwhelming numbers, but Jinhyuk orders him to focus on controlling the battle while he handles the fighting. Both begin resurrecting the fallen kobolds, turning them into skeletal soldiers, who then join the assault against the living kobolds. Jinhyuk instructs Vulcan to transform every defeated enemy into a skeleton soldier. With a confident, "Let's play," the two launch themselves back into the fray, tearing through the enemy ranks. Meanwhile, Haryu continues her own battle but gradually grows more fatigued. Seizing the opportunity, a kobold sneaks behind her and lands a strike across her back, leaving her injured. After being ambushed by a kobold from behind, Haryu steels herself, reminding her mind and body that the pain from such an attack is nothing compared to the agony she felt when her village was burning. She quickly takes down the remaining kobolds in front of her before dropping to her knees. As she questions whether this is her limit, a sudden explosion erupts behind her. Turning around, she sees Cha Jinhyuk in the midst of battle, amazed by his relentless fighting spirit. She wonders how someone on the first floor could take on so many enemies at once. She struggles to gather her strength to stand, but before she can rise, another kobold lunges from behind. In the split second before it can land a blow, Vulcan intervenes, saving her. He asks if she is all right, and she replies that she can still fight. Her resolve impresses Vulcan, leaving him curious about the kind of hardships she endured. Haryu then questions why Vulcan is helping her, pointing out that no one came to her aid while she fled from the 100th floor, and how she had been relieved that no one tried to harm her. She asks if he is expecting something in return. Vulcan answers that he doesn't know. He is simply following Cha Jinhyuk's orders to help her achieve her goal. With that, Vulcan departs, muttering that if he doesn't assist, Jinhyuk will berate him for not working hard enough. This exchange leaves a deep impression on Haryu, and she silently promises to repay her debt to Cha Jinhyuk for saving her life. She then summons a mask, places it over her face, and charges into the fray. Once masked, she dominates the battlefield, taking down hundreds of kobolds with her sword. This confirms Jin-hyuk's suspicion that Haryu's abilities may be the reason her village was targeted, but he chooses to keep this to himself. As the final minute of the monster wave approaches, a single kobold emerges from the shrinking wave gate. Jin-hyuk shouts that it must be the last one and hurls his sword, striking it down and completing the objective within the time limit. The monster wave ends, and a system notification congratulates him for successfully stopping it. Exhausted, Haryu begins to collapse, but Jin-hyuk catches her by the shoulder, keeping her steady. She blushes, finding herself uncomfortably close to him. A notification then appears for both of them, revealing the rewards for the top 3 contributors, something Jin-hyuk is eager to see. The monster wave concludes with the defeat of 2,500 monsters. Jin-hyuk earns first place in contribution, receiving the title Kobold Slayer, 500 achievement points, and a +5 boost to all stats. Haryu secures second place, and Vulcan takes third. Each of them is awarded a gleaming cube as a reward. Vulcan, clearly surprised, admits he never expected to place third, let alone receive a reward. Jin-hyuk casually tells Vulcan to hand his cube over. Haryu, meanwhile, offers her own cube to Jin-hyuk as a gesture of cooperation for their future together. Jin-hyuk, however, becomes suspicious. He refuses, explaining that he has been betrayed before and that just because he allowed her to travel with him, it does not mean he trusts her. He warns her that the second-place reward is far too valuable for him to accept without questioning her motives. Still wary of betrayal, Jin-hyuk tells Haryu she must earn his trust, otherwise, he will not continue to accompany her. To prove her sincerity, Haryu summons her Dakibi mask and offers to give it to him along with her monster wave reward. This stuns Vulcan, who immediately asks if she truly intends to give such a thing to an outsider, since a Dakibi's mask holds the essence of their power and is only given once in a lifetime, typically as part of a marriage proposal. Jin-hyuk questions her real intention for giving up something so precious. Haryu explains that it is proof she will never betray him and the price for saving her life twice. Pressing further, Jin-hyuk asks if there is another reason. She then recounts the attack on her village, how she found no survivors and assumed she was the last of her kind. As the final surviving member of her kin, she vows to take revenge and pleads with Jin-hyuk to let her climb the tower alongside him. Recognizing their shared purpose, both driven by revenge, Jin-hyuk accepts her monster wave reward and warns that betrayal will mean her death. He adds that he has no interest in the mask and that she should not treat it as her lifeline. Overjoyed, Haryu smiles, expressing her excitement about climbing the tower with him. Jin-hyuk opens the cubes, receiving a mana ring, mana earring, and mana necklace. When Haryu asks if they are valuable, Vulcan explains that they are excellent for necromancers who require large amounts of mana to sustain armies, increasing both the quality and quantity of summons by 45%. Jin-hyuk then mentions Byun, reminding him of his promise to give a reward. Byun teleports them to an empty town, which Jin-hyuk assumes was evacuated when challengers moved to the second floor after the monster wave notice. There, Byun presents him with a dark force ring. Upon inspecting it, Jin-hyuk is shocked to find it contains demonic energy, a rare and high-grade mana resource normally hoarded by demons and obtained only in small amounts through servitude to them. His status window updates with an additional demonic energy stat. Satisfied, Jin-hyuk shakes hands with Byun, offering to forget past pranks. Moments later, multiple notifications reveal Ball burning with jealousy. Smirking, Jin-hyuk offers to shake hands with Ball in exchange for a gift. Vulcan warns that he must be insane to try to swindle a demon. Ball, growing restless, begins searching his closet, drawers, but finds nothing. In desperation, Ball finally declares that he will create a quest. When the peak of all evil, Ball announces through the quest window that he will create a quest, Vulcan reacts with excitement, telling Jin-hyuk that this is their chance. Jin-hyuk, also surprised, agrees and tells Ball that he will do him a favor by accepting the quest. Ball mutters that this was not his original intention, prompting Jin-hyuk to tell him to stop if he does not want to proceed. Ball shakes his head, claiming it is too late as they have already made a deal. A status window then appears with the details of Bale's quest. The objective, for Jin-hyuk, to make himself known throughout the tower before reaching the 100th floor. The penalty for failure, begin training to become Bale's apostle. The reward for success, a recipe for anything of Jin-hyuk's choosing. Though the penalty is steep, the reward is too tempting, and Jin-hyuk immediately commits to completing it. After accepting the quest, Jin-hyuk steps outside. Haryu asks if they are heading to the second floor, but he replies that he first intends to find Kim Sung-tae and extract important information from him. He assigns Vulcan to capture Sung-tae, explaining that he placed a spirit soldier on him and is certain Sung-tae is still on the first floor. With this news, Vulcan hurries off, remarking that Jin-hyuk should have told him sooner. Alone with Haryu, Jin-hyuk asks to talk while taking a walk, explaining that he wants to know more about the Dakibi mask. As they walk, Haryu explains that the mask allows the wearer to access Dakibi abilities. When Jin-hyuk asks if these abilities are related to charm or supernatural powers, she confirms and adds that she possesses foresight, which lets her see into the future. Hearing the name, Jin-hyuk initially seems disappointed, remarking that a battle-related ability would be more useful. Haryu stares at him and explains that outsiders often travel for days to request this ability from Dakibi elders, as most people fear the future and will do anything to avoid their fate. Jin-hyuk responds by asking whether there is any need to avoid fate, saying that if there is something to worry about, he will simply break through it. Relieved, Haryu says her ability will suit him well, revealing it as Battle Foresight, a combat-specialized version. After learning this, Haryu asks if she is useful. Jin-hyuk embraces her, telling her the ability is perfect, that he is glad she has it, and that she is the best. He thinks to himself that with this skill, he may have a real chance against 9 Star's combat specialists, Sword Star, Bow Star, Great Thief, and Godly Spear. Haryu thanks him, but they are interrupted by a system message announcing that Ball is taking photos and that the nine-tailed fox is watching with interest. Annoyed, Jin-hyuk calls Ball a stalker and tells him to leave. He apologizes to Haryu, but she says she is just happy to be of help. Jin-hyuk promises to make good use of the mask and to help her take revenge. Meanwhile, Vulcan captures Kim Sung-tae, pinning him against a tree and telling him to stop struggling since his friends have already abandoned him. He orders Sung-tae to wait for Jin-hyuk, complaining that it is difficult to restrain him without killing him. Jin-hyuk approaches, takes Sung-tae's sword, and returns it to him, warning that whether it ends up in Sung-tae's hands or in his body will depend on his answers. He questions Sung-tae about the White Swallow Guild, listens to his account, then releases him, stating his intention to destroy the guild regardless. Considering the influence of the Holy Land Guild and its affiliates, Jin-hyuk suspects there are many smaller guilds serving them between floors 10 and 100. He sees Bale's quest as an opportunity. Dismantling the Pelin siblings' network will help him clear it. With his next target in mind, he begins heading toward the 10th floor. At the safety zone on the 2nd floor, a crowd gathers to see those who cleared the monster wave. Some claim there were only 2 survivors, others say 3. The portal opens and 3 figures step through. Cha Jin-hyuk in the center, wearing Haryu's Dakibi mask. Questions immediately fly. Is he part of a guild? What is his name? Jin-hyuk, hiding his true identity, answers with the alias Ghostface. After giving the false identity of Ghostface, Cha Jin-hyuk departs with his party. A black-haired man demands an explanation, but before he can continue, a hooded figure interrupts, speculating about the possibility of Ghostface having. He adds that he has heard of many cases where criminals hide within the tower. Determined to fulfill Bale's quest, Jin-hyuk makes sure that rumors about the mask and the monster wave spread widely. Without wasting time, he teleports with Vulcan to attend to more pressing matters. Away from prying eyes, a system window displays the current quest. Defeat 10 kobolds and kobold warriors to advance to the next floor. Jin-hyuk instructs Vulcan to bring the kobolds and kobold warriors alive, as he also wants to test his demonic energy on them. Once Vulcan leaves, Haryu asks Jin-hyuk about his plan for clearing the floor advancement quest. Moving forward, Jin-hyuk begins testing his demonic energy when a kobold suddenly bursts from a bush, charging at him. He casts demonic exposure. The kobold appears to dodge the orb, but moments later, its body begins to disintegrate. Haryu watches in shock as Jin-hyuk explains that those unable to withstand the raw force of demonic energy are destroyed from within, even without direct impact. He then attempts to create a stronger spirit soldier by merging the kobold's soul with demonic energy. The soul collapses under the strain, So Jinhyuk reduces the energy's density from 10 to 1, successfully creating a demonic spirit soldier. The ease with which he manipulates the energy surprises even him. Vulcan returns and is visibly impressed by the new creation. Jinhyuk begins to wonder if he will need to imbue each captured soul with demonic energy individually. As he glances at Vulcan, an idea sparks. He remarks that Vulcan's ability to command and position summons in battle, as well as his summoning proficiency, surpasses his own. Hearing the praise, Vulcan lowers his guard, giving Jinhyuk the chance to channel demonic energy into him. Vulcan cries out in pain and demands an explanation. Jinhyuk calmly explains that once Vulcan's soul is infused with demonic energy, he will be able to automatically summon demonic spirit soldiers. Fuming, Vulcan swears that once he grows stronger, he will make Jinhyuk pay. Now transformed into a powerful demon soul soldier, Vulcan issues a challenge. Jinhyuk picks up the Dakibi mask, smiling as he tells Vulcan that he was looking for a strong opponent to test it on anyway.